please use the raise hand option in the reaction tab on your device. Okay, and the chairperson will call on you to share. It is suggested that you identify with the speaker's feelings and not compare stories. After all, it was a feeling that got us here. And tonight, to share the experience, strength, and hope is one of our home group members. And I'd like to give you Saleem. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Welcome, Saleem.
Welcome.
Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, thank you. Hello, family. My name is Saleem, and I'm a grateful recovering addict. First of all, I want to thank the God of my understanding for another day clean. And I want to thank Yvonne and the It Gets Better group. What a great name. For the honor of sharing my experience, strength, and hope, so my newfound virtual home group can get to know me, because as we say, we can't help you unless we know who you are. And by the grace of God and the powers greater than myself, today I celebrate 17 years, 1 month, and 15 days clean.
All right.
And today I want to talk about something that has caused havoc in my life from the beginning and still does today. And that's complacency. And its solution, the second step. See, I'm not just talking about the past. I'm talking about right now. Not right now, but right now. Because I just lost my job last week from complacency. And that still hurts. And I believe that if I had applied to step 2, I probably might still have that job today. And that's is in theory. This is how my disease shows up with 17 years clean. See, and it works in how and why. Step 2, it says, even after years clean, we may move away from sanity, not towards it. We become obsessed with self-destructive thoughts and fall back on what feels easier, the familiar ways of our addiction. If things don't feel right, we take the time and seek suggestions and trust that with help from others and a power greater than ourselves, we can be restored to sanity. And here's the hit. Sanity often means we don't act on our first impulse. It's a lot of jewels right there. See, for me, those familiar ways of addiction look like breaking company policies, cheating the system to increase revenue, acting out on defects like greed, doing things I knew I shouldn't be doing. You see, when I became obsessed with breaking policy, it didn't feel right. But I didn't pause. I didn't think. I didn't reach out for help with those self-destructive thoughts. Instead, I got complacent and did insane things and acted out on my first impulse. That's my disease, complacency. The basic text says complacency is the enemy. And for me, the enemy didn't start in recovery. It became like my whole life. So let's go back. See, I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, a rough neighborhood. But fortunately, my parents moved us to Glenmore Plaza, which was a brand new facility at a housing complex at the time. And it felt like we was in an oasis in the desert of a rough neighborhood. I mean, we had our basketball courts, playgrounds, kiddie pools, and sprinklers, and we felt safe. You know, on the outside, my family looked like a loving family, like the Black Brady Bunch. But inside, something was off. I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel seen or heard. I didn't feel like I belonged. My dad and my mom worked, and my 3 brothers and sisters and 2 sisters were all busy with their own lives, and I didn't feel a part of it. You see, I was born a twin, and I was much weaker and more underdeveloped than my twin brother, Donnie. May he rest in peace. In fact, the doctors didn't expect me to live. But my father, who was not a religious man, prayed for me all night and said, "My son is a fighter. He will live and do great things." I lived, thank God, but I never felt strong or confident. I didn't like being weaker than my brother, so I didn't like myself. And when I heard that story about my dad praying for me, it didn't inspire me. It felt like pressure. Pressure to be the one expected to achieve great things. And every time I fell short, my self-loathing grew. So my mom told me a story which is kind of embarrassing. She said she had to put a partition between me and my brother because he kept beating me up. And I would put my head over the partition just so he could hit me, and I would cry to my mom for attention. And when I heard that, I thought I was a glutton for pain, but in reality, I was playing the victim, putting myself in harm's way so I can blame others, off in the name of love and attention. That's my disease at work. My distorted thinking instilled in me as an infant. And that pattern followed me into school. In school, I was smart. Straight A's came easy for me. At first, I got praise for good grades. But like an addict, I became addicted to it. Praise felt like love for me. So I craved it. I needed attention, validation, and acceptance. But like an addict, I OD'd on it. I became arrogant with my intelligence. I know it all, desperate to show I was smart. I even made stuff up so I can look smart. And eventually, the praise I got for being smart turned to scorn. I got labeled a know-it-all, called a brainiac, Dr. Spock, criticized as a smartass. And like a drug, what once filled a spiritual void stopped working. And that void got bigger. And though I was smart, I wasn't disciplined. I remember my mom telling me, "Ronald, you got good book smarts, but no common sense." Another time she said, "I love you. I just don't like what you do." And when she said that, all I heard was like, my mom don't like me. There's something wrong with me. Which is added to that low self-esteem I already felt because I was weakened than my brother. And I understand now why my mother probably liked my brother better. Because he was independent, he could play by himself quietly, while I was always whining and crying, starting troubles with my siblings so I could play the victim and the blame game, just from my mom's love and attention. See, I was developing the victim pattern of putting myself in harm's way, then blaming others. And I didn't know it then, but that was my disease. Distorted thinking, seeking acceptance, avoiding responsibilities. Then another pattern emerged. When things got hard and boring, I got complacent. I stopped doing the hard work because I wasn't getting praised for it anymore. And in high school, I lived a double life. Student council president on one side, and on the other side, Cool Kindu, my graffiti name. Getting high, selling weed. I got the praise and attention I craved from the student council as their president, and from the cool kids because I had good weed. You see, I was living a lie, and I hated myself for it. Eventually, marijuana wasn't enough to numb the self-hatred, self-loathing, and pain I had. I moved to crack during the 80s crack epidemic, and my life went down fast. I became homeless. I caught a federal case for cashing stolen checks, trying to get the next one. I did 7 years in and out of prison when I was only supposed to do only had 5 years probation, no jail time. But since I couldn't stop using and kept getting dirty urines, I violated probation and kept violating parole, going in and out of prison like a revolving door because I couldn't stop using. I mean, I would stop for a while, but I couldn't stay stopped. I was living what the literature said: jails, institutions, and death, killing myself one crack vial at a time. By the end, it was easier to be locked up than it was to live. It was easier to be homeless than to pay rent. While on the run for parole violations, I hit rock bottom. I was so sick and tired of using and living on the streets, I turned myself voluntarily to my parole officer and timed my surrender to catch lunch and dinner because I was so hungry. And when I got out of prison, I tried everything to stop smoking crack, man. You know the drill. Changing places, changing people, changing drugs. But like we said in the rooms, we must abstain from all drugs in order to recover. Eventually, I went to detox, then a long-term program, and something shifted. I became grateful. I got clean, but not whole. And I came into NA reluctantly, not in desperation like most addicts. And that matters because I kind of thought I was cured from that TC program. So it took me years to finally surrender to the NA program because I was forced to make meetings and get a support group in order to complete the program. So I tried to recover by osmosis, being around recovery, but not working it. My first sponsor, Abdul, may he rest in peace, gave it to me hard. He was one of those hardcore predecessors, man, who took NA seriously. And he told me, when he heard me sharing some Gucci stuff from the literature, sit up front, take the cotton out of your ears, put it in your mouth, and shut up. If you need a share, pick up the phone. Because what you know about recovery will get somebody killed. And he also said, we told you there's no rules in NA, only suggestions. We lied to you. If you want to stay clean, don't pick up. Avoid people, places, and things. Make meetings. Get a sponsor. Use a sponsor. Work the steps. And if you don't use your sponsor, you don't have a sponsor, which means you have a fool for a sponsor, yourself. Yeah, Abdul gave it to me raw. And I needed that because it made me finally listen. And that reminds me of my former sponsor, William F. May he rest in peace also. He once said that listening is not an art. Listening is a gift. And I listened to the message of hope and the promise of freedom that I could stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. And I stayed clean for a while. But I didn't change inside. So after 5 years clean, I developed a reservation. I thought I could celebrate my 5 years by using one last time and come back clean because it was just a slip. And no one would know. Talk about insanity. That didn't work so well. I relapsed and suffered for 12 long years, in and out, getting clean, relapsing, reusing over and over again, like going back and forth to prison. But this time, it was a spiritual prison. Denial. But by the grace of God, I didn't lose everything this time. I became a suffering, functional addict, looking good on the outside, but broken on the inside. Then God blessed me with something miraculous. See, when I tried to get full custody of my daughter, I didn't have the time needed to legally claim possession of her. But the clerk on my case was a sister in recovery. She remembered my daughter from a meeting I took her to. She said I was a few weeks short to file for custody of my daughter. Then she looked at me and saw how broken heart I was. And then looked at my daughter, who I brought with me, and she said, "She's so cute." You know what? You're close enough, man. And she stamped my paperwork and pushed the case through. A classic example of the many miracles of this Narcotics Anonymous program. And you know what? I didn't even earn that. That was grace. And because of that, I got custody of my daughter, Habiba. She was 11 years old, bubbly, full of life, a bundle of joy, the best gift I ever received. And I remember like it was yesterday, walking from home, and she was like, and I was looking down at her, trying to keep the eye contact, and she was walking fast, trying to keep up to my pace. She was talking and talking, moving her hands and trying to make her point. And I knew that when she talked a lot, she was happy. And for the first time, I had something outside of me that made me want to do right. She depended on me. She looked up to me. She believed in me before I believed in myself. And that did something to me and compelled me to try to be responsible. And on the outside, we was looking good. I was being a responsible father. But inside, I hadn't changed. And eventually, like always, it caught up with me. So instead of growing, I followed my old complacent pattern. I needed a steady, reliable babysitter. I tried one of my cousins, and she was smoking grass. And I said, no, I can't have that. So I needed a babysitter while I worked long hours. So I took the easy way out. I married a housewife. A housewife I didn't really want, but who wanted me. And my family warned me, and it was like, dude, don't do it, man. She ain't the one, dude. But I didn't listen. I married for convenience, lust, live-in babysitter and maid, but no real connection. And as you well know, it collapsed. And I had a nasty, painful divorce. I mean, we was fighting, arguing over this and that. And I used that pain as an excuse to use. Then by God's grace, I met my current wife. The first woman in my life I really loved and pursued with all my heart. She was a keeper, strong, independent, highly educated, top schools, degrees, positions, financially secure, clean, never been to a club. But more importantly, she was loyal in my darkest moments in addiction. All a man can want in a wife. My ride and die for nearly 25 years. We fell in love, got married, and with her son, 2 daughters and my daughter, on the outside looking in, we was a beautiful family. It looked perfect. But inside, I was dishonest. I didn't tell her I was an addict. Then one weekend, I disappeared. Stuck on stupid, using for the whole weekend. And it all came out. And my secret was exposed. She felt betrayed because I wasn't honest. Because I didn't give her a choice whether she wanted to marry a sick addict in recovery or not. And that's when I realized my disease was dishonesty, playing the victim, and complacency. The same pattern from childhood. And that's the condition I was in when I came to step 2. But when I started with step 2 and people started talking about God, I wasn't ready. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel clean enough for all the foul things I did, the lying, the cheating, the stealing, the conning, the manipulation, using people for what I wanted, discarding them when I was done. That low self-esteem, that, oh man, that shame and guilt. See, I didn't feel clean enough to say to God, help me. But even though I didn't pray, even though I didn't speak directly to God, I knew God was speaking to me through you guys. by the things you shared about how to stay clean and serene, one day at a time. Through the meetings, through the literature, through my sponsor and the fellowship. So I came to believe that this God-given, life-saving program is all about one addict helping another without parallel. And that's just not something I read in the text. Not something I heard, but something that allowed me and allowed God to help me. He spoke to me through you guys. That's how he reached me when I couldn't reach him. And that's how step 2 began for me. Now let's fast forward to today. Today I suffer from the same complacency pattern as I did in the past. This negative pattern still haunts me today, and I'll tell you how. See, I recently invested thousands of dollars in a business and didn't follow through. It got hard and boring, and I got complacent. Stopped doing the basics of the business. Got distracted. Moved on to the next project, to the next shiny object. And then I lost my job. But this time, I didn't want to go back to insanity like I did the last time I had a major setback. I didn't want depression, isolation, and escape into other addictions to cover my pain, like overeating junk food and porn and vegging out on Netflix all night. So I made a decision to sincerely apply the second step this time. I got a new sponsor. I got a commitment. I started my 1990. I paused. I didn't act out. And I reached out to another recovering addict who was very different from me. We're the complete opposite. I mean, he's a white guy, gay, Jewish from the West Coast. I'm black, straight, and Muslim from the East Coast. But we didn't care about race, religion, sexual identity, or where we came from. All we cared about was what I wanted to do about my pain and how he can help. And he helped change my whole perspective. See, we not only shared the same disease, we shared a common experience. He found his story in my story. And we built a spiritual connection. What the SPAD reading for April 6th talked about. A simple, sacred bond, which means to me a bond blessed by the God of my understanding. And my brother in recovery, he shared with me, he said, it has been my experience, and I love that he came from experience and not what he heard or what he read or some advice, because advice is like an opinion, man. Everyone got one. So he said, it's been my experience that if I'm not learning, I'm not growing. And if I'm not growing, I'm not living. And that hit me. Like Morgan Freeman said in the movie Shawshank Redemption, either get busy living or get busy dying. Perhaps I was not learning, growing, but rather dying on the job. And he also said, he once had to sit himself down and self-reflect on what he really wanted. And that's what I did. I found out what I really wanted was to work on my online business full-time. And perhaps I self-sabotaged my job because I really didn't want it. And upon further reflection, after all these years, man, I finally realized that this job loss was exactly the same thing. I'm talking about exactly the same thing that happened to me 15 years ago when I lost my first and the best job I ever had in Houston.
You got 5 minutes.
And my daughter, I took her to that job. It was a great IT job. And you know what? The company warned me not to use their resources to work on my side business. But my sane thinking said, I only had to do it on my break, not on company time. And despite the warning, I did it anyway, thinking that, listen, I'm on my break time. I'm good. So why did I keep following the same negative patterns over and over again? Why didn't I learn the last time I got fired? Why did I get fired doing the same thing over again? Good question. Simple answer. As I said in the literature I shared earlier, after 17 years clean, I got complacent. I became obsessed with self-destructive thoughts. I fell back to familiar ways of addiction, cheating the system to increase revenue. Even though it didn't feel right, I didn't reach out for help. And I acted on my first impulse, which is an insane act. So in closing, here's the hope hit. If I don't have to trust my thinking anymore, I can pause, reach out, and get a different result. I don't have to wait until I fall. I can catch that insane thinking today. I can recognize that negative pattern today and correct it today. And finally, I don't have to come to believe perfectly. I just need to believe just enough to reach out to my higher power, and that's where the restoration of my sanity begins. And if it's okay, I just want to share this real quick story. When I graduated from the Daytime Village, a residential treatment center, my mom flew up from Georgia to New York by herself to attend my graduation. And when I picked her up in my brand new white-on-white New Yorker, and the car's computer started saying, "Please lock the door. Please fasten your seatbelt." I laughed. And when she asked, "Who's saying that?" But I almost cried when she said, "Ronnie." And she only called me Ronnie when she was okay with me. Usually she'll say, "Ronald." But this time she said, "Ronnie, I'm so proud of you, baby. Not because of the things you have," as she looked around the car, "but because of the man you're becoming." And I felt back tears and was so happy and grateful to hear my mom say that, who is almost always so critical of me. And by the grace of God and the powers greater than me and the miracles of Narcotics Anonymous, I was blessed to be by my mom's deathbed with 7 years clean as she breathed her last breath at 90 years old. And the last thing I heard her say before she left this world, which may very well be her final words, she softly called out my name, "Ronnie." And at that moment, I believe she believed she was not alone. And I knew when my mom left this world, she was pleased with me because she called me Ronnie. My name is Saleem. My name is now Saleem, and I'm a very grateful recovering addict. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Let's
That's
thank
amazing.
Sally for sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Saleem.
Yeah, we have this.
I'm Lawrence, I'm an addict.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for your service to this meeting. I'm so grateful to be in a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous and so grateful to be in this meeting. I want to thank my brother Saleem for just his beautiful words today. You know, one of the coolest things about, well, let me say that 7 years ago when I came into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, I never ever dreamed that I would gain another family. But I actually have 2 families. And I swear to you, I love my NA family way more than I like my blue family. Don't tell my mother that, but you know, it's so amazing to think that I could have family members all over this country.
Mm-hmm.
I could go to any state and I could call somebody and immediately we would connect or see each other. And you know what? Now I have a family member in Houston, and I think that is just the coolest things in the world. And it's so cool when you meet a stranger and you connect.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that happen? In recovery. I swear, I feel sorry for normies because they just don't. We are so lucky. And I am so lucky that I got to hear Saleem's words 3 times in 1 month. Oh my God, I'm not going to crosstalk, but brother, can you believe that? 3 times in 1 month? Who does that? Anyways. You know, Saleem said something that really, really I could so relate to, and that's, you know, starting at a very young age. It's amazing. I never realized how much I absorbed as a little kid. But my sponsor likes to say that I started young and I became nothing but an escape artist, meaning I learned how to escape reality at a very young age. And my escape from reality was being dishonest and lying. And the only way that, you know, you don't come out of your mother's womb as a liar. Well, I haven't met anybody that's done that, but I certainly didn't. And it was learned behavior. And who was it learned by? My parents. You know, I would watch them and I would see what they would say to each other. And I knew they were not telling the truth. And then as I got older, my mother's favorite line was, "Don't tell your father, don't tell your father, don't tell your father." And they were lying to each other. And I was sitting there watching this and I was thinking, oh, well, that must be the easy way out. You know, not to tell the truth or to tell a half truth. And don't tell the whole truth, you know? And I watched this and I learned what they did because I thought that's what everybody does. And so as I got older, I learned to be a really good liar. It's such an ugly thing. And honesty was not my friend because it was more difficult, I thought, to be honest. And it was easier just to, like, you know, skirt the truth and then when I found a life of drugs, it became so easy to, and I could relate to this also, living a double life. Oh my gosh. I could say things and do things, and then it was almost like I had a split personality. And that had a lot to do with dishonesty also. I was not honest with who I was with anybody because I had my normie friends and my, let's call them my abnormie friends, right? Those were the people that I used to use with. And I could maintain 2 different lives, and it was exhausting. Yeah. But you know, dishonesty, when I feel like I'm being dishonest, or I feel like today, I feel like I'm thinking about, I don't need to tell the truth. It makes me feel gross. It makes me feel dirty. I want to go take a shower because that is not a spiritual principle that I live by today. I realize that even though it might take more work to be honest, in the end, it's the better decision. And I feel better about myself. I'm so grateful for the spiritual principle of honesty. And I'm so grateful for the spiritual principle of willingness because willingness got me here today. And, you know, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just wanted to share and tell Saleem and everybody that I could relate so much to what's been said, everybody who shared before me. And I'm so grateful for being here. And I'm still Lawrence, and I'm still an addict. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Okay, the floor is open.